Welcome back from your break. Before the break, we looked at the history of the Earth via the geological timescale. What we're going to be looking at now is how do we divide up the geological timescale, and that is we divide it into eras and periods, and that's what we're going to have a look at now. This is the geological timescale with the different eras, the three main eras. Now, as you can see, each of these main eras is divided up into smaller and smaller portions, which we call periods, and they all last more or less 50 million years. Because there's so much on this slide, we're going to look just at the Paleozoic period, and we are going to have a look at the different periods in that Paleozoic time. So here we have just the information from the Paleozoic era, and we can see it's divided up into 6 periods. And those periods are more or less 50 million years. But the interesting thing is the pictures next to each period show some of the common animals which existed at that particular time on Earth. The ones that are shown here are the most common fossils that were found at that particular time, and they are called index fossils. They are the common animals that show if you find a piece of rock and it's got that fossil in it, you know that it came from that particular time in the history of the Earth. What this also gives us is it shows when these particular periods existed. And you have to be able to look at a scale like this and say, okay, if this is the Devonian period, you will need to read off, this is how long the Devonian period actually existed. So you have to be able to interpret something like this. And here we're looking at the next one, which is the Mesozoic Era, and it is divided into 3 periods. Now, the Mesozoic Era was when dinosaurs ruled the Earth. And have a look at this. The Jurassic period is when dinosaurs ruled the Earth. Can you think of a movie which has dinosaurs in it? Jurassic Park. And again, all the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park are actually based on what scientists have worked out that dinosaurs actually looked like when they existed on Earth. The only thing, remember, we don't know what color they were. Now, this is another representation of the geological timescale, and it's really, really quite a lot to take in. But the good news is you don't have to learn this. But what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to extract information given to you in a geological timescale. So you have to be able to use something like this to find information. For example, over what time period did the Devonian period extend? So you would go here and you would find the Devonian period and you would see how long did it last, 60 million years. And if we look at what this is, that will be which index fossils or which animals were common at that particular time. Here we have another geological timescale, also with the pictures of the animals that were very, very common at that particular time. And you also need to be able to link the period or the era, the period, when that period was and which animals are found in that particular period. So you need to be able to link all these different parts together. For example, this again is the Paleozoic Era, which we have enlarged. And here is an example of a question: when were invertebrates the most common form of life? So you look at the pictures here and you say, okay, there's some things that look like fish, but hey, all of these at the bottom here, they are all invertebrates. So over which time were invertebrates the most common form of life? From 570 to 430 million years ago. Which era was it? Paleozoic Era. And which periods? Sorry about that. Which periods? The Cambrian, Ordovician, and Silurian periods. You don't need to remember these names, you just need to be able to use a geological time scale and extract the information from it. Then, from fossils, paleontologists have discovered the most amazing animals that existed on Earth. Did you know that 99% of all the animals and plants that existed on Earth are extinct? And we only know what they look like because paleontologists have found fossils of them and worked out what these animals actually looked like. So, while most of these are now extinct, we know what they look like. And what we're going to be looking at next is we're going to be looking at the history of the Earth, but we're dividing it into different ages depending on the type of organisms that were most common at the time. And that's what we're going to be looking at next, the ages of the Earth. Early on in geological time, invertebrates ruled the Earth, and invertebrates that are very, very different to the invertebrates that we have today. So let's look at some of them. Very strange. This is an artist's representation of what some of these animals look like. But remember, this is all based on fossil evidence. At the beginning of the Cambrian explosion, which is that time span, oh, and you don't need to know those times, because if you're asked to interpret a geological time scale, those million years would be on the time scale. Most of the Earth was sea, and there were lots and lots of invertebrates. Seas were warm. Land was barren. Living things couldn't go on land. Sea levels were high. At one stage, 300 meters higher than the sea levels today. Some common invertebrates, monster shrimps, 1 meter in size. They were fierce predators. This picture is a model made from fossil evidence. Another animal common at the time was something called a trilobite, and this was an arthropod, and this is an actual fossil of a trilobite, and they were very, very common back in the Cambrian period, and they're basically related to lobsters and crabs. Next period was the Ordovician period, which lasted for 45 million years. And during this time, invertebrate life continued to diversify. Seas were warm, sea levels were high. It was a lovely environment, so animals could survive quite easily. Another picture of some of the animals that existed at that particular time. Remember, this is an artist's representation. If we look at most of these, don't exist anymore. The only one which still exists in more or less the same form is this one, okay? And that is called a nautilus. And nautiluses do exist nowadays, even though they're very, very rare. The rest of these, we only know they existed because of their fossils. And here are two common, well, this is one common fossil animal, which makes up about 90% of the fossils found in these layers of rocks. They were ammonites. That's what they look like from the outside. And this is what they look like from the inside if you cut them open. And as you can see, they were made of a whole lot of compartments. Now, the beautiful colors shown here do exist, but they are from the minerals that percolated into this as it became a fossil. And these were related to the octopus.